Good morning. Inevitably on our daily walks we'll see a sign on a lamp post or telegraph pole or somewhere, lost and found. Dogs and cats and sometimes even budgerigars are lost and found. My own story of lost and found pets was in the first Christmas we lived in a house, a new house. We'd moved to a new church and had a new house through the year. And this was the first Christmas, and we came back Christmas night with two young children who were very tired and my grandmother who was coming to stay with us for a few days. We arrived home, we carried the children inside, got them ready for bed and put them in bed. And realised it was quiet. We opened the back door and expecting to see our two furry friends, Naomi, a crossed collie of about 11 or 12, and Nehemiah, a golden retriever of about 6 or 7. They weren't there. Maybe they were under the house, escaping the heat and tired and asleep. So we went out and we called, no response. We walked around the house looking and discovered the side gate hadn't been closed properly and was now wide open. Naomi and Nehemiah were out in the world exploring and they were lost. We hurried inside and told my grandmother and said, look, you keep things under control here. We're going out to look for the dogs. Susan took the car and I was on foot. And off we went, searching the streets. After about an hour, Susan found me and said she'd found Naomi and taken her home. And she'd had enough, she was tired. So we drove home and Susan stopped and I went out for a bit more of a look for Nehemiah. But to no avail. I looked everywhere and couldn't find him. He was lost. So I went home and crawled into bed, tired. Sleep was difficult. All the thoughts and worries, had he ventured up onto the main road and been hit by a car? Had he walked into the bush and fallen down something or other, embankment, or broken a leg or something, caught in something? All the thoughts and possibilities went through my mind, but I fell off to sleep. We woke in the morning recognising that Nehemiah was still lost. Sad and prepared to get ready and go out and look once more to see where he might be if he's still wandering. Susan opened the front door and nearly tripped over a golden retriever lying on our doormat. It was Nehemiah. He'd come home. He was asleep and we woke him up and brought him inside. He had a long drink and then collapsed into the corner dead tired. We don't know where he'd been or what he'd done, but we assumed it must have involved food because Nehemiah loved his food and he wasn't hungry. But in thinking about it, I don't know inside a dog's mind and I can't read their sense of being lost. Did the dogs have any sense of being lost? Was it just one big adventure for them? They were walking the streets, searching the place, looking around. Streets that they'd walked, other places. Did they have any sense of being lost? Or were they only lost in our minds? This week, in the middle of the Christmas season, Christmas, the 12 days, goes for another week or so. But Christmas Day has come and gone and has been lost in Boxing Day tests and City to Surf and now the looming New Year's Eve celebrations and fireworks, and the hopes that the new year might bring for many people. Pushing aside, it's a line in the sand, pushing aside the old year with all the stuff that's happened and hoping for a new year that's positive, this mythical, magical time. But Christmas has been lost and within it, the baby in the manger, the Christ child born, and the hopes of transformation, change, something in the world that was different. It's come and gone. I always feel a sense of lostness in this space. Peace from just taking a deep breath after the busyness of the end of the year. But lost, caught in the midst of a story that hasn't ended but seems to have been pushed aside. And as I come to Luke's story of Jesus this week, it's an odd reading, really. The baby in the manger is kind of left behind and we're dealt with a boy who's of age or turning of age in the Jewish sense. He and his family have travelled with relatives and friends to celebrate Passover in Jerusalem. And after the celebrations, they're on their way home in the caravan of friends and family and so on. And they travel a day, and the parents believe that Jesus is up there with his cousins and siblings and others. And when they stop at the end of the day, they search for him and they can't find him anywhere. He's lost. They panic, they're afraid, and they turn around and head back to Jerusalem. And they search for Jesus in Jerusalem. And on the third day, do you get that reference? The reference that will come at the end of the story, 3 days before resurrection. On the third day, they find him in the temple, talking with elders and leaders, asking questions and confounding people with his own answers. And there's relief and there's joy, and every parent knows, the lost child, that the relief and the fear and the confusion and the anger and the uncertainty and all the rest of it just pours out in emotion. Where have you been? Why have you done to this? Why are you treating us like this? And the young Jesus is confused, puzzled. What do you mean? Why wouldn't you think to look for me in my Father's house? And then they're confused. And the story ends, this whole section of Jesus' early life ends with Mary saying she's amazed. She holds all these things in her heart and is amazed at this boy who grows in wisdom with God and in favour with humans. But the stories of lostness flow through Luke's gospel. Later on there'll be stories of a lost sheep, a lost coin, and a lost son. The prodigal son who goes out into the world to discover his own freedom and explore and try out the world, but who discovers he's actually lost, and that home, the place he didn't want to be, is where he belongs. And his father welcomes him there, and he finds himself found. In a world that for me is lost in the politics of greed and power and might and violence, of producing weapons of mass destruction that hurt the world and hurt people. A world that's lost in violence, in conflicts, in global warming, and we don't know what to do, or we don't have the will to really respond in the way we need to. A world in which the Christmas story promises hope, but a baby in a manger seems too sentimental and simple and is quickly overlooked. I feel lost in this world and lost in this story. Have I missed the story? Have we missed the story? The story of God breaking in and promising a new way in the world. This Jesus who, as a young child or as a near teenager, recognises the reign of God. But his parents, who are religious and zealous for religion, seem lost. They've missed the point. And this is where I find myself, the tension of Christmas. The promise of this story and the reality of God breaking into life, to human life, day in, day out. Of the inbreaking of God's reign in love and hope and peace and joy, where there are acts of love, where people reach out in kindness, where there's reconciliation, where people choose a way of peacefulness, peaceful reconciliation over violence and hatred and conflict, where you and I have the choice every day to love or to not love, to give ourselves in hope and in a positive way that makes a difference, or to deny people that peace, that hope, that life. This is Christmas. And maybe this is the hard moment when we get to choose whether we will allow this Christmas, this story, this inbreaking of God to change us and transform us and use us to be transformers in the world, people of love and justice and hope. The work of Christmas really begins now. And as we look forward to a new year, will we take this hope, this power, this promise of Christmas and make it real in our lives and the life of our world throughout the year ahead?